yang terkait dengan ESG tersebar di 13 kementerian lembaga. Jadi cukup lebar ini Bu, pengaturan dari sisi ESG-nya. Tidak ada satu koordinating yang melakukan konsolidasi terkait itu. Jadi masih bergerak masing-masing. Jadi ini PR juga Bu bagi pemerintah agar bisa mengkonsolidasikan dari kementerian lembaga sehingga ESG ini makin bisa diterima oleh seluruhnya. Setidaknya ada 11, terdiri dari paling banyak adalah peraturan dan peraturan menteri, setidaknya ada 55. Kalau undang-undang ada 29 undang-undang. Kemudian ada peraturan pemerintah ada 18. Ada kajian kami ini ke mana sini kami tidak menyertakan peraturan daerah karena memang cukup banyak peraturan daerah, jadi kami lebih berfokus pada pusat dahulu, peraturan pusat. Next. Ya, baik. Nah, ini adalah hasil dari kajian kami. Setidaknya hampir 50% peraturan Indonesia dari 111 peraturan yang kami analisis itu sudah komplit dengan ESG, dengan parameter ESG global. Jadi ada 3 standar ESG yang kami lakukan sebagai benchmarking. Ada IRMA, ada Ubermark RMI, dan ada satu lagi dari FCPS. Jadi ada dari ketiga parameter, dari ketiga standar global tersebut setidaknya kita ada 50% kita sudah komplit. Jadi ini adalah bukan sikap yang buruk, sikap yang baik sebetulnya untuk agar kita lebih lagi untuk mendapatkan pelayanan terhadap standar internasional. Mungkin kita bisa lihat sedikit agak ke timur, ada environmental itu rata-rata banyaknya di sosial ya. Sosial ini masih di kisaran 30-40%. Bukan berarti kita tidak ada peraturan itu. Jadi kenapa nilainya rendah ini adalah karena kita melihatnya subjeknya sama persis dengan yang disyaratkan oleh standar nasional. Kita sudah mengatur, tapi secara subjektifnya tidak sesuai, tidak ada perbedaan. Jadi itu mungkin bisa next kita nanti ada standar nasional ini bisa menjadi perwakilan lebih spesifik melakukan. Jadi kemudian kalau governance juga masih relatif sedikit. Ini adalah gambarnya baik maupun terhadap ketiga parameter baik IFCPS, IRMA dan Ubermark, kita masing-masing untuk sosial masih rendah. Kalau environmental cukup baik, rata-rata 5% karena memang kita punya AMDAL, kita punya peraturan yang lebih terkait. Kemudian governance juga masih kurang. Next, kayaknya banyak next. Nah, sebelumnya ini adalah beberapa parameter yang memang kita cukup melihatnya cukup miris karena nilainya 0. Ada nilai 0 seperti human rights, security, legislation, relocation, livelihood, investment lokal, bukan berarti tidak diatur. Tapi memang kedalaman dari peraturan kita dengan global itu berbeda. Jadi kita ada yang kita hanya menyalurkan secara undang-undang kita sudah mengatur, tapi untuk implementasi ke sektor misalkan pertambangan bagaimana wilayah pertambangan itu belum ada. Kita tidak memasukkan nilainya. Kemudian anti trolling sudah dari sisi kanan kita ada mungkin bisa bilang udah 100% compliant. Itu hanya di sisi tenaga kerjaan. Jadi kalau untuk tenaga kerjaan kita sudah 100% compliant karena kita sudah beraktivitas dulu. Jadi outcome dari kegiatan kami ini dan analisisnya ada 30. Yang pertama adalah untuk memberi informasi pada pemerintah. Itu ada 13 KL. Ini memang kita lakukan untuk ESG, hanya PR yang kita lakukan. Kemudian yang kedua untuk para badan usaha, para pelaku usaha, jika teman-teman badan usaha ingin melakukan mencapai ESG compliant, misalkan 100% terhadap tadi IRMA, terhadap FCPS, terhadap TNI atau Superman tadi, ini loh kalau teman-teman usaha itu 100% sudah komplain, nilai sekian. Jadi ada beberapa tambahan yang harus dilakukan. Jadi apa yang harus dilakukan? Nanti pun di next tanggal 8 kita akan publikasi hasil report. Akhir tahun kita akan dibikin deadline-nya. Dan yang terakhir adalah dari hasil ini juga kami ingin melakukan semacam komunikasi dengan ISG provider bahwa ISG ini harus melihat juga spesifik dari country masing-masing. Kayak di Lumanda itu mungkin secara global seperti ini, tapi di Indonesia tidak bisa diterapkan karena kita punya hukum adat, kita punya macam-macam yang diatur secara adat. Mungkin itu Bu sementara dari kami untuk kondisi dari peraturan dan kondisi dari ISG. Terima kasih.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ferry. So another point from your slide. So if you're talking about the ESG, specifically in Indonesia, should align coming from 13 ministries. Yeah, so because in Indonesia we have so many ministries, but if you're talking about the ESG, it's coming from 13 ministries. First, they have to align each other, right? Because sometimes, sorry to say, that's that the government already left. But yes, Pak Ferry would like to say that it's government, it's ministry that has to align with the ESG standard. What is important things in the ESG standard? And then focus on social also, right? Because we're coming from the different cultures, different indigenous, different area. Okay, and then what else? Regarding for this data, I can say for many companies, especially from the mining company, totally. Well, what I know in Indonesia, there are almost 10,000 mining companies. 5,000 from mineral and coal, and others from non-metal. So it's coming from 10,000 company. He said not more than 10%. Is it? Not more than 10% of mining companies. They're not totally understand about ESG is, yeah. And I guess the first thing that we have to do regarding for the ESG, capacity building. Is it? Capacity building is most important things to trading company, the mining company, and then they will understand how important, and also for their sustainability, and also probably we cannot try the government, we can incentive regarding for the facility, which is the ESG or non-ESG. Is it? Thank you, Pak Ferry. Okay, now guys, what is surprise now? Okay, so what I know OECD, the due diligence worldwide company. Is it? Am I wrong? So, well, I give it to you. Probably you can introduce yourself, yeah, and then what you're doing, and then from your perspective, how important the ESG for Indonesia, especially Indonesia mining company, especially how important is. Regarding for the ESG standard, international ESG standard, like Ferry said, from RMI, from IRMA, from Nickel Institute, from many ESG standard agencies. From their parameter or their methodology, is already aligned with Indonesia condition or not yet? Please.
Thanks so much for including the OECD in this event. It's great to already see that you're on the second edition, so it's clearly well established now. But yeah, as you say, I'm Ben Katz, and I manage our work at the OECD on responsible mineral supply chain. So we have a standard called the OECD Due Diligence Guidance for Responsible Mineral Supply Chains. This is a standard that's been agreed upon by governments. It's a little bit different in terms of where it sits in kind of the hierarchy or sort of operationalization of different standards. For example, IRMA, RMI, many of the standards that we just heard the benchmarking on, they represent efforts to actually operationalize our normative legal standards into kind of an auditable framework that companies can actually follow on site, whether they're on a mine or at a smelter or refiner. And I think, when it comes to of course, I'm going to say that ESG is important. No surprises there. But I think actually, in terms of what we heard this morning from many of the senior Indonesian government officials here, is that it was really an ambitious vision. And in terms of, I think, what states are involved, whether that's attracting responsible investment, being able to diversify investment by reassuring investors that may be skeptical or have fears about engaging in the extractive sector or in developing countries, that it can play a role in that regard. And I think, of course, we've seen a lot of different ways that our standards have been translated into national policy measures as well as industry frameworks over the years. So there are a lot of decision points there in terms of matching, form, the function, how it's designed, how it's enforced. I think what's really important is that not only do you have that kind of common, those shared concepts, so that the national framework is aligned with international expectations, but also that you tailor them to the national context. And I think what that involves, is making sure that there's a clear idea of what problem you're solving. And I think, of course, national Indonesia in terms of sustainable development, in terms of communities benefiting from the sector, that's really where a lot of focus can be. There are a lot of aspects of responsible business conduct, of course. Some of them were just covered in the previous sessions, not only on carbon, but other environmental risks as well. For example, air and water pollution, toxicity, health issues. The OECD guidelines on multinational enterprises, which is really our overarching, our kind of mother instrument that sort of sits upon our sectoral standards, like our minerals guidance. That covers really everything under the sun when it comes to responsible business conduct. So not only human rights and labor and employment, but also corruption and integrity, environment, security issues. So all of these issues kind of come into play in terms of maybe centering efforts and helping governments and industry organizations focus on sort of how to prioritize, how they should sort of go about designing these expectations. I think when it comes to this process that you've embarked upon for the next couple of years, some of the key decision points will be comparing what your ambitions are to other countries' experiences with regulatory, whether that's mandating audits or site monitoring or how supply chain due diligence kind of interfaces with existing ESG regulations that we heard about, also law enforcement and customs efforts when it comes to illicit trade. Of course, Indonesia already has the SEMARA supply chain transparency system. Maybe it's worth seeing how you might build on that to make sure that there's physical reconciliation so that nothing's being left, no loopholes are being left open to exploit either for tax avoidance or other issues. In addition to our sectoral standards and the guidelines, we also have a recommendation on the role of governments in promoting responsible business conduct. So that is another OECD legal instrument that governments have agreed to, of course relevant in the context of Indonesia now being an accession country of the OECD. And I think there's some good pointers here in terms of regulations being proportionate to the issue being implementable. So making sure that any kind of barriers to implementation are addressed, conflicts of interest. So there are a lot of different considerations here to make sure that not only do we have the right design and we're focusing on the right risks, but also that this design is actually can be put into action, that there's kind of a credible enforcement mechanism. And that includes, that we're not losing touch, I think, with what matters, and that's the affected communities and stakeholders. I think it was Sybil in the other session that said, downstream companies, they're looking for proof of assurance. I'm not sure that's always what we're looking for. It can be a factor, but I do worry sometimes that when we use due diligence as sort of proof that something has taken place, then all we're doing is kind of it does become a compliance exercise again in terms of actually focusing on the problems at hand. So in that respect, I think regulations can go a long way to making sure that there are effective grievance mechanisms, that there's consultation with communities, that local issues, whether that's indigenous peoples, specific environmental risks, employment issues, that they're also considered in the mix. And finally, and also that there's access to remedy. And finally, it's also important. I know that you're embarking here. It looks like on industry expectations. So ultimately, that's going to interface with the regulatory expectations. And I think that there's a complementary role, between the role that APNI and industry has to play and government, where the industry is working to lift and all boats, lift membership, have accountability, pool resources, and have effective implementation, and better position companies not only to work with their international business counterparts, but also to comply with the Indonesian regulatory expectations.
But regarding for the from a ferry perspective, that it's not easy, especially talking about the geopolitical issues. Geopolitical, like mentioned before, that we are coming from talking about the ESG in Indonesia, it's coming from the 13th minute, 13 minutes. So do you have any idea or situation how we align with the government first? So it's coming with one regulation for the ESG and also apply to the whole stakeholders from upstream, downstream, but will align with the international expectation.
That's a very interesting, loaded question with a lot of institutional implications. It actually makes me think of my visit to the National Museum and the exhibition on the diversity of Indonesia. And how difficult it can be to align. I think it's great, first of all, that there's so much interest and engagement across the government. So that's on the positive side of the ledger. That it's clearly considered an important issue. I think when it comes to, our sort of the daily job of the OECD really is to convene a huge range of different views and stakeholders and try to reach alignment. So I understand, I sympathize with the challenge. I think though that when all these different players are involved, obviously, there needs to be sort of a feedback loop going not only upstream to the communities and the provinces. My colleague Luca Mayotti, who's also here with me, the last year we were here, we did some site visits in Morowali, sort of got to understand also the provincial dynamics. So I think making sure that these communication mechanisms are in place, that not only in terms of consultation, but in terms of kind of setting out milestones in the process and setting out what the objectives are to sort of progressively reach consensus at these different points and to stay in touch. I mean, we have an annual forum on mineral supply chains. We're here as a resource, but I think there are a lot of others as well, including networks of investors that I think, can really help. So it's really about staying in touch. The nuts and bolts of that are challenging, but I know it can be done if there's enough bandwidth dedicated to it.
Okay, so I guess in my perspective, probably we can discuss more intense with the government, right? And Indonesia not only coming from the central government, becoming from 34 province, 17,500 islands, how to align all of them, from the province and also to the central, right? Because, sorry to say, sometimes in the province, always with a different perspective with the central one, right? So I think we have to find out what is the best solution so we can increase with the government, with the central, but I guess we still need more discussion with the market. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I also think Indonesia has some advantage in the sense that there's a very active network of trade unions and civil society organizations, which can kind of be your eyes and ears in different provinces. And I think my sense is that there's a lot of eagerness on their part to participate in these processes. But I don't think it's challenging, but it's not a complete mystery. I think we know there's been a lot of press, a lot of reports. I think we know kind of what the challenges on the ground are. So just making sure, going back to that point I made about matching form and function.
Yes.
Are the mechanisms, whether that's enforcement, monitoring, the relationship between the industry initiatives and the government, are they kind of working in sync? I think in some ways it may be about sketching out almost like to diagram what the different roles and responsibilities are. And I think this effort, in terms of benchmarking Indonesian regulations, that's very relevant too. That can be a good basis. But ultimately, I think the priority, should be on addressing the impacts in Indonesia rather than, necessarily taking a kind of fine-tooth comb to sort of check to make sure that exactly the provisions in RMI are, reflected in the law. It's more about making sure that the principles are aligned and that the impacts are being addressed.
Wow, very interesting. So, now I came to the high school player apparently. Hello, Pak Tony. Okay, so Pak Tony, you already listened from Pak Ferry, from our government side, and also from the expert. Yes. Okay, regarding your experience. You're coming from the upstream, middle, and also you're coming from the downstream. And based on our regulation, and regarding for the market expectation on your area, in Harita area, probably you can give us some suggestions, some ideas, some perspective. How hard is it to align the international framework in Harita area? So any suggestion also to the government, based on your experience.
Yeah, thank you. In Harita, yes, we have mining, and we also have the processing and refinery, all in the same place, right? And our project area is in the island, even though only cover about 5% of the island, right? From mining and downstream is already have the two ministries involved, the key Minister of Natural Resources and also industry. And also they have a regulation, right? Fairly mentioned. So many regulations in Indonesia, and it's a good, thank you for very, because there's a gap analyzed based on the regulation. What is the standard, the international standard compared to the regulation? So from this perspective, that there is regulation in line, right? But like Pak Ferry mentioned, how many ministries, Pak? 13. So maybe if it buyer investor coming and see only specific mining, they will see only mining, but they don't see the other regulation from different ministry. Yes. So this is also showing how complexity of the Indonesian regulation. That all the company have to follow, because that is the minimum regulation. Company has to follow that and comply with the government regulation. The second is that buyer need based on the international standard, right? And so many also international standards in the world, depending on buyer what they want, standard was needed. But if you see this kind of standards, there's a similarity, right? And it's compared to regulation, it's already also covered. there's some missed point on that standard is that what we have to develop for the Indonesia recovery. There's mine everybody that's in Indonesia. There's a mining only. There's also mining and smelter, right? And there's only smelter only. And the location is mostly in Indonesia, different place. And there's also already public listing. There's non-public listing. The requirement for the public listing is mandatory under regulation in Indonesia. Some ESG regulation have to follow the ESG. Non-public, no need. Voluntary, I would say, voluntary, right? But if we're going to choose what is the ESG Indonesia, then we have to apply not only for public listing but also for non-public listing. Of course, have to be slowly increased, we understand, right? That's this market. It's good that's conversation showing what is market needed on ESG. So, and from in Harita, there's experience that we use the international standard, and we're still working and building document and also and it's not fixing. Still continue, right? So,
Sudah dikirim ya tadi?
it takes time, but yes, I mean, let's see the Indonesia dairies potential to be improved, right? What we need is not be sudden change. It have to be, yes, slowly step up. I think that's from my season.
Okay, this last question. You know exactly there. No, still from you, Pak Pani. One question. Last question from you. Recently we hear about one state-owned trading company. Okay, Akadana Nagara. Do you think the Nagara trading company they will meet mandatory ESG before you export to the Nagara? Because like Ben said that in Indonesia we have a lot of platform, digital platform. In the mining area we have Mineral, to control the whole production, exploration, the selling your material, the smelter. So the government will be checking everything. So it's coming from the digital platform. And also when you would like to export or we call it Simbara, coming from the Finance Ministry. So do you think any new platform talking about ESG due to the Nagara, because all of export goes to the Nagara first for the next year probably. So any idea about it? So probably we can suggest to the government, so it's going to be mandatory but still align with the market. What do you think?
I think that is from different perspective. Yeah. ESG is have to be clearly made by all the supply chains. It doesn't matter who control or what. So I see from the experience that in the world, I don't see the country, right, keep the strict on the ESG and regulate it, right? And that's how we keep. Let's market need it. That is as very important on the ESG, right? Maybe 10 years ago in nickel, anybody talk about ESG? No. But the regulation is already there related to ESG, right? That's not recognized and do. So that's why that is the market needed now. So my perspective, that's the ESG standard for Indonesia. It's more independent, right? Cannot for certain company, certain regulation, you regulate it. I mean, that's one. Yeah. But sorry, I don't know about it. Because it's not my to answer it. I know what you're going to, but
The best after SK Group. But do you think is it very important is that for the ESG standard in Indonesia, especially for the mining company, the whole mining processing also production should be mandatory. I'm not talking about the market requirement, but for Indonesia itself, should be mandatory or
Yeah. Right now, I would say this one has to be still country. Yeah. And that's again based on the market need. Yes. You see the market need, you have to follow any certain on the ESG. And we have to show it, yes, there's a standard we have, and we can show it to the world that Indonesia also already adjusted, right? I don't mean that we're lowering the standard that already have in the world, but we adjusted to the what the culture, what is the government regulation. So that's what I'm asking.
okay? Thank you so much, Pak Tony.
Thank you.
Okay, next. Hello, Ibu. So interested to know, based your experience in farm industry, how you make it, how you convince the government, how you convince especially from the European market regarding for your standard, because what I know is already released since probably 10 years ago or just back, but just give us some suggestion and your perspective in terms of our mining sectors, and you know exactly what happened in Indonesia, and we got a lot of NGO, they blame us, they said about the dirty mining, in not only for nickel and nickel, but for the whole mining in Indonesia and company. So, do you have any suggestion? And then I need your reference based on palm oil, how you make it for the ESG standard and the palm oil plants.
Thank you, Bu Henry. So, we are Indonesia as the biggest producer in the world. Creating standard, sustainability standard in palm oil is not easy. We start since 2004. At that time, we are not Indonesia, but the stakeholders of the palm oil creating the RSPO, Roundtable Sustainable Palm Oil, in 2004. They released all the consumer, some consumer country, NGO, and producing countries sit together to create why palm oil is always pointed as the product not healthy, not environmental requirement, not follow the environmental requirement. Land use change is very high value for the land use change. Why it's happened? So all the stakeholders sit together and creating this roundtable sustainable palm oil. There are several principles they create on this. And for us, Indonesia, we follow the sustainability. What is sustainability is that? So we made Indonesian interpretation on RSPO. Because we know we cannot follow all the RSPO because all the principles of the RSPO because Indonesia we have our own regulation. So that's why the government of Indonesia creating Indonesia Sustainable Palm Oil and released in 2010. Maybe the next slide, please.
We started in 2004 and then released in 2010.
Indonesia 2011. we created Indonesia Sustainable Palm Oil.
Okay.
And while we already utilize implementing as mandatory Indonesia Sustainable Palm Oil, the market is not acknowledge our ISPO yet. That's why we decide in 2015 we need to revamping our ISPO. We are do negotiation, communication, and also doing campaign to all the consumer countries, especially the UK. We go to the Chatham House, we go to Brussels, we go to